Hey gang, and welcome back. This week I'm bringing you another exciting EDH game. We've got 4 previously seen commanders, but 2 new friends for this game. This week I'm playing my Zedruu the Great-Hearted deck, Louis is playing his Heliod deck, Vanessa is playing her Grand Arbiter Augustin IV deck, and Vincent is playing Arjun the Shifting Flame. For my opener I keep Swansong, Stranglehold, Wild Research, Island, Plains, Supreme Verdict, and Clifftop Retreat. Vincent keeps Frantic Search, Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, Gyre Reach Sanitarium, Evacuation, Island, Mystic Remora, and Lonely Sandbar. Vanessa keeps a hand with 3 islands, Enlightened Tutor, Imprisoned in the Moon, Liev Sky Knight, and Darksteel Ingot. Louis keeps an opener with 3 Dreams, Heliod's Pilgrim, Swiftfoot Boots, Wayfarer's Bauble, Emeria the Skyrune, and 2 Plains. Vanessa wins the die roll and starts us off. Vanessa plays an island and passes to me. I play a Sacred Foundry tapped and pass to Vince. Vince plays his Lonely Sandbar tapped and passes to Louis. Louis plays a Plains, then taps the Plains to cast Wayfarer's Bauble and passes to Vanessa. For her turn, Vanessa plays a Plains and then casts Land Tax before passing to me. I play a Hollowed Fountain tapped and pass to Vince. Vincent plays Gyre Reach Sanitarium and passes to Louis. Louis plays a Plains, and rather than crack Wayfarer's Bauble which will allow Vanessa to get lands, he plays Swiftfoot Boots instead. Vanessa's turn sees an island come into play, then she plays Darksteel Ingot and passes to me. For my turn, I play an island and then cast Jace Beleren. I choose to use his first ability, allowing everyone to draw a card before passing to Vince. Vince plays an island and casts Chasm Skulker. Louis plays a Plains and passes to Vanessa. Vanessa plays an island, then casts Narset Transcendent. She upticks Narset, revealing the top card, but unfortunately it's an island so she doesn't get to put it to her hand. With nothing else, she passes to me. My turn has a Plains come into the field, and I cast Zedruu before uptaking Jace, which allows us all to draw. Vince's Chasm Skulker also gains a +1/+1 counter. With too many cards in hand, I have to discard Enchanted Evening before passing to Vince. Vince draws for his turn, and Chasm Skulker gets another +1/+1 counter. Vince plays Myriad Landscape before casting Mystic Remora, a great card in any blue EDH deck. For Louis' turn, he casts Knight of the White Orchid, finding a Plains card and putting it onto the field. He then plays Temple of False Gods for his land drop for turn, and tapping one of his Plains, he equips the boots onto the knight and swings at Narset. With nothing else, he passes. On Vanessa's turn, she gets to trigger land tax, finding 3 basics and putting them to her hand. She puts a Plains into play, and then casts Liev Sky Knight, using its Titane Enter the Battlefield trigger to stop Skulker from attacking or doing anything until her next turn. Vanessa then activates Narset, revealing the top card, which she puts into her hand, but unfortunately I don't see. She passes to me. For my turn, I play Prairie Stream and cast Wild Research. I didn't pay 4 for Mystic Remora, so Vince gets to draw, and Skulker gets another +1/+1 counter. Moving to combat, I swing Zedruu at Vince. After my combat step during my second main phase, I use Jace's -1 to draw myself a card. During Vince's upkeep, he pays a cumulative upkeep for Mystic Remora and then plays an island. He taps 2 to cast Thought Vessel. At the end of Vince's turn, Louis taps Temple to break the bauble, finding himself a Plains. Paying 3 mana, Louis casts Stratascythe, exiling one of his Plains from his library. Louis equips his knight with the scythe and moves to combat, swinging at Jace, killing him. Louis has nothing else to do, so he passes to Vanessa. Once again, land tax triggers for Vanessa, but she only finds 2 Plains this time, and goes to her draw step. She plays a Plains for her land drop, and then casts Grand Arbiter Augustin IV, paying 2 mana. Vanessa casts Oblivion Ring, targeting Stratascythe. Vanessa then upticks Narset, but unfortunately the card doesn't get to go to her hand. In response, I use Wild Research to find Ghostly Prison and discard Solitary Confinement. During my first main phase, I pay 4 to cast Rhystic Study, which will further tax everyone but me. Moving to combat, Zedruu takes advantage of Louis having no blockers and gets in for 2. We realize at the end of my turn that I didn't pay 4 for Mystic Remora, and Vincent gets to draw a card, which in turn triggers Skulker. At the end of my turn, Vince sacrifices Myriad Landscape to go find 2 more islands and put them into play tapped. On Vince's upkeep, he has to pay the Piper and pays 2 colorless mana to keep Mystic Remora on the field. Vince draws a card, Skulker gets a +1/+1 counter, and then Vince plays a mountain. Paying 5 mana, Vince casts Dissipation Field, and I forget to use Rhystic Study's trigger. The enchantment resolves, and with nothing else, he passes to Louis. Louis plays a Plains for his turn, and then casts Heliod's Pilgrim for 4 mana. I ask him if he pays 1 for that, and he allows me to draw an extra card. With the Pilgrim resolving, Louis goes and finds Angelic Destiny. Paying 5 mana to get around Grand Arbiter, Louis casts Angelic Destiny, allowing me and Vince to draw a card. Moving to combat, he swings at Vanessa, who blocks Liev Sky Knight. With his combat step finished, Louis passes to Vanessa. Once again, land tax triggers on Vanessa's turn, and she finds 2 islands and puts them in her hand. Vanessa plays an island for her land, and then upticks Narset, which unfortunately does not net her a card. She then pays 2 to cast Imprisoned in the Moon, and targets Vince's Chasm Skulker. She doesn't pay the the extra cost for Rhystic Study or Mystic Remora, so Vince and I get to draw a card. She follows it up by casting Emeria Shepherd and passes to me. At the end of Vanessa's turn, I use Wild Research to find my own copy of Imprison. The gods of magic are not merciful, however, and I lose Nahiri, the Harbinger. For my turn, I play a Plains and then cast my own Imprison, but this time I target Vanessa's Narset. With Narset handled, I skip my combat step and move to the end of my turn. I have too many cards in hand, so I have to pitch Karmic Justice and Guile, who shuffles himself back into my library. On Vince's upkeep, he chooses not to pay the cumulative upkeep, and Mystic Remora goes to his graveyard. Vince plays Nykthos for his land, and then taps 6 mana to cast Almoret's Archive. Vince then passes to Louis. Louis hits his land drop, and then pays 6 to cast Heliod, God of the Sun. He moves to combat, swinging the Knight at Vanessa for 6. With nothing else, he passes to Vanessa. Vanessa is once again able to use her land tax, and she goes and finds an island and a plains. On her turn, Vanessa plays a plains, and thanks to Emeria Shepherd, is able to bring back Lee of Sky Knight. Using the Sky Knight's Enter the Battlefield trigger, she targets Heliod, God of the Sun. Louis in response makes a 2/1 Cleric token. With no good targets, thanks to Angelic Destiny and Dissipation Field, Emeria Shepherd smashes into me. Suspiciously keeping the rest of her mana open, Vanessa passes to me. My turn has Plateau come into play, and I cast Academy Rector. Surprisingly, Rector resolves and I pass my turn. At the end of my turn, Vince casts Frantic Search. Still not finished, he taps Gaia Reach Sanitarium, forcing us all to draw and discard a card. For his turn, Vince plays a Mountain and then taps 6 to cast Mana Geyser. However, having played against Niv Mizzet decks where they like to go off by generating tons of mana, I don't let this happen by casting Swan Song and paying the extra 1 for Grand Arbiter. Losing out on the momentum he would have gained from the Geyser, Vince casts Jace's Erasure. With nothing else, he passes to Louis. Louis' turn has Emeria the Sky Ruin come into play, and he casts Aura Touch Mage for far too much mana. Using the trigger, Louis finds Eldrazi Conscription and attaches it to the mage. Unfortunately, Louis forgets about his Swiftfoot Boots and moves to combat, swinging the Knight at me for 6 damage. During his second main phase, he remedies this and passes to Vanessa. Like almost every turn before, Vanessa is able to use land tax and finds 2 plains and goes to her draw step. Doing nothing in her first main phase, Vanessa moves to combat, swinging the Shepherd at Vince. A brave blue swan throws itself in the way, however, and prevents any damage from being dealt to Vince. Vanessa, after performing a quick survey of the field, realizes that she's a bit outgunned and drops Supreme Verdict. In response to Academy Rector dying, I choose to exile it to find an enchantment card. As I'm still searching through my library, Vanessa recasts Grand Arbiter, and I finally find Keranos, God of the Storms, and put him onto the field. With nothing else, Vanessa passes to me. On my turn, Keranos reveals Paradox Haze, and I get to blast Grand Arbiter for 3 damage. During my first main phase, Sarah's Sanctum comes into play. I then tap the land and cast Greater Oromancy to protect my enchantments. Tapping 2 lands and using the 1 remaining mana from Sarah's Sanctum, I cast Ghostly Prison to deter anyone from attacking me. I follow that up with Stranglehold since I'm playing against 2 blue decks and I don't want them taking extra turns or finding Cyclonic Rift. Vince's turn sees Reliquary come into play, and he casts Library of Leng before casting Arjun the Shifting Flame. Vince then activates Nykthos to generate 4 blue mana and pays 2 red and 3 of the blue mana to cast Incendiary Command. He chooses to have us wheel our hands and destroys my Sarah's Sanctum. He doesn't pay the extra and I get to draw a card. Unfortunately, while we're all discarding our hands and drawing that many, Vince uses Arjun's trigger to put his cards on the bottom of the library, and then in turn draws 18 cards thanks to Almoret's Archive. Jace's Erasure triggers 18 times, and Vince divides it up 3 ways. He then uses Library of Leng's ability to replace Incendiary's Command discard by putting his cards on top of his library. We make a small mistake and Vince only redraws 12 cards as opposed to the 24 that he should with Almoret's Archive on the field. He causes us all to mill some more cards, and then casts Mystic Speculation, which triggers Arjun again. We do, however, remember the Archives trigger, and this time Vince draws 24 cards, which forces me and Vanessa to mill for 12 cards. With the milling and Arjun's trigger having resolved, Vince gets to scry for 3. He keeps 2 on top and puts 1 on the bottom. Having done more than enough, he passes to Louis. On Louis' upkeep, thanks to Emeria the Sky Ruin, Louis is able to bring back Myojin of Cleansing Fire. During his first main phase, Sun Titan gets to join the party and brings back Transcendent Master. Louis levels it up 6 times and passes to Vanessa. At the end of Louis' turn, I cast Enlightened Tutor to go find Chamber of Manipulation. Unfortunately for Vanessa, land tax is blocked by Stranglehold and she can't go find her basics. Instead, she plays a Plains, casts Norn's Annex, and then casts Grand Arbiter Augustin IV. With all her lands being tapped, she passes to me. For my turn, Keranos triggers revealing Chamber of Manipulation to the surprise of no one and deal 3 damage to Louis. I play Petrified Field for my land for turn, and then cast Chamber of Manipulation for 5. Since Keranos is now active thanks to Chamber of Manipulation, I swing it at Vince. Not wanting to take the 6, Vince puts Arjun in front of Keranos and casts Snapback targeting Arjun. He exiles a card so he doesn't have to pay the mana, but I respond by activating Wild Research. By paying 1 blue mana and 1 colorless, I go find Force of Will and put it to my hand. I have to discard Command Tower as a result. Louis responds by removing the counter from Myojin and wipes the field. The Arjun trigger resolves and Vince gets to draw 44 cards, forcing Louis to mill 22 and Vanessa and I to mill 11 each. With nothing else, I pass to Vince. Vince draws for his turn and forces Louis to mill 1. He then plays an island and casts Inner Fire. I respond by casting Force of Will, taking 1 damage and exiling Omniscience, but with 44 cards in his hand, it's almost certain that Vince has a counterspell. It just so happens that that counter is Counterspell. Inner Fire resolves, and as a result, Vince is able to gain 42 red mana. He then goes on to use 1 of that red and cast Obstinate Familiar, which allows him to skip drawing cards if he doesn't want to. He follows that up by casting Chromatic Lantern, Soul Ring, and Darksteel Ingot. Vince goes through a few other cards before casting Laboratory Maniac, and follows it up with a Mind Moil before cantripping to draw out the rest of his library and win the game. Review time. Not much I can say really, it was a bit of a slow game because of the 3 blue decks. Louis' Heliod deck was quite strong. Unfortunately, however, we made a bit of a mistake with the Myojin of Cleansing Fire. He wasn't supposed to get a Divinity counter since it didn't come from his hand, but it really didn't change too much in the game, thankfully. It's a shame you didn't get to see what Vanessa's Grand Arbiter deck is really capable of. I've played against her a couple times and it can do much meaner things, but unfortunately having to wheel her hands and losing her general several times really set her back. I'm not too sure what I was thinking when I exiled Academy Rector to find Keranos. I should have found Omniscience. I was drawing so many cards off Ristic Study, it really makes no sense now that I watch it. Vaisal's Arjun deck, however, was awesome. He followed the typical trend of most Izzet players, which is hang back, don't make yourself a threat until you can basically win and blow out the table. It's unfortunate we missed the 1 trigger from Alhamret's Archive, but I really don't think it would have changed too many things. It was a fun game, and I was glad to see what the Sphinx was able to do. It was a real shame when I played against Chad and had to face Leovold, which pretty much shuts down the deck. Please be sure to tune back in every Monday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for new primers, top 10s, and gameplay videos. This video was brought to you in part by my Patreon supporters. If you're looking to help support the channel, please visit the link below or in my About section. And as always, thank you for watching, and please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe.